Hey, good morning. Shalom to all of you. It's Rico from Wisdom and Torah. And I wanted to come this morning and share with you, or this afternoon, whatever you're listening and you're watching, anywhere you are. And I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to talk to you a little bit before, get a few more people to come into the Facebook Live, okay? Now, this video is about the resources that I use for the temple research that I have been doing for the last 20 years. This was a request from a few people on Facebook, and I think it's a good idea to share the resources that I have compiled in the last 20 years to share about the temple, okay? Now, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that just because I have the research that everything that I say is like, gospel, okay? What I'm trying to tell you is that as we continue to research and understand and learn and see and look into, it is important to your resource list has to be credible when it comes to concrete things like the temple. See, the temple is not just it's not speculation. The temple is a concrete, it's a tavnit. According to scripture, is a blueprint, is a pattern that the Father has established to teach us about his protocol, about his approach to him, about his holy things, about the sacred space and everything that goes along with it. So what I'm going to do, I hope you're ready, is compile with you, for some of you that may be interested into doing more resources and doing more research on this important topic. Instead of arguing with me about where did you get that from, I'm going to record this, so anytime anyone asks me where's my research come from, I can just refer you back to the video, and then that way you can go look it up and verify it. I have a teacher on the temple. His name is Joseph Good. He's been studying the temple for over 40 years. And this is something that I've learned from him that when I began to watch him like 6-7 years ago, and I watched some of the videos, he will quote something and get the page and get the book. And at the time I had half of those books. And, it created a lot of credibility to know that you can verify the information. Now, doesn't mean that every second you say something, you have to, where the scholarly work, listen, all these resources is just to help us validate information, okay? And the reason why in the last 7-8 years I have chosen to go in this direction is because in 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I was doing research and I was teaching a few things that I thought were right, and that was the information that I had with the resources that I possessed at that time. When I began to look more into the information, I had to go back and remove some of those teachings that I did 15 years ago, 13 years ago, because unfortunately, I didn't have the whole picture. I didn't have the whole panoramic picture. I only had limited information. So what I want to recommend to you is that as a teacher, I am always searching, looking, researching, learning, looking for other people that know way more than me to help me verify, because my ultimate goal is to share with you context and to edify you and your learning experience so that we will stay away from all the speculations and conspiracies and things like that. I think there's a place for that if you want to do that on your spare time. But when you start talking about the temple of my king, that's more concrete. You don't mess around with holy things. So we need to learn these principles. So what I decided to do is take the advice of those few people who mentioned it to me, and instead of me sending pictures to everyone, hey, which books do you use? And I always come to my office, take pictures and send it to them. I decided to just pull them all out of my bookshelf, share them with you. If you want to get them, great. If you're not, that's okay too. But I want you to know where I get my information from, so that if you hear me say something, I'm not just pulling things out of thin air, guys. I make sure that I read all this information to my best to put it in this proper context, so I do not manipulate the text, and I always will be honest with the information provided, because this is the word of the Lord. We need to have that kind of respect for it. Now, I'm only showing you limited resources that I have here, because on my phone, I have a resource that is invaluable, that is called Logos. And in Logos, I have more information about the temple but I'm only going to show you the hard copies. Are you ready? Are you with me? Now, what I would recommend is for you to consider sharing this video after I'm done with it. It's going to take us a while. Sharing this video with people so that they can also join. And by the way, if you do not have the time to read all of this, or obviously not everybody is called to read all of this, not everybody is interested in reading all of this, it's okay. The Father has given me the opportunity to the time and the desire, not the time, I have to make the time, but He's given me the desire and the calling to research this area and to have access to teachers that know more than me in this particular area. So I want to research it with you. I want to share it with you. And you can join me every year in January. We're going to have temple courses. This year we have a temple course. 2 years ago we have a temple course. You know, next year we're going to do a course, an intensive course in Orlando about, is Yeshua Messiah? Or in the sense of showing you through scripture that Yeshua is Messiah. And that's going to be, you know, our theme next year as of today. It may change, but that's what we have planned today. All right. So what I want to do is share with you the resources that I use. If I don't answer any of your questions, please don't feel that I'm ignoring you. It's just that I want to stay here. I have too many books and I want to share them. Okay. Are you ready? Are you ready? All right. Now, back in 1999, I bought a book by Alfred Edersheim. I couldn't find it. I don't know what it is right now. Oh, there it is. Woo, I got it. All right, give me a second. And these are the books that I started with. Sorry, I keep doing things that I'm not supposed to on the video, but that's all right. It's my video and I can do what I want to. All right, here we go. This is the book that I got back in 1999, 98, 99. And I believe it's a great starter, okay? It has some things in it that is not necessarily right on, but if you don't study the temple, you'll miss it. You know, it's just one of those things that when you study something for so long, then you pick it up, okay? But that's okay. It's like me watching a movie when they show temple functions and temple stuff. It's like, okay, that's wrong, and I have to be careful with that, because just because I understand the context doesn't mean that the movie is not trying to do their best, because their interest in the movie is not about the temple. It's just to show the backdrop of the storyline. So I got to understand that and stop being critical, you know? Anyway, so this book, I think it will be a great starter. So if you cannot afford any of this stuff or interested in reading all this, just read this one for right now as an overall information on the temple. It's just like the overall. It gives you different topics. It's by Alfred Edersheim. Its ministry and services as they were at the time of Messiah. And I think it's a good resource. You know, you got to know who Alfred Edersheim was and make sure you do resource. Make sure that they gather information from primary sources, okay? This is important. Don't go to a guy who heard from a guy who heard from another guy what something may be. This is important. Try to go to, you know, archaeological review and go to some of these resources that will help you. So this is one of them. Let me move this stuff because I got to move the book over. All right, so Alfred Edersheim, okay, as a starter. I read this book every year for like 5 years just to review, and then I began to read all the resources to help me. All right, next. You're going to have this one that I read also in 1998. It's more like Christian-based, you know, understanding in the sense of the conclusions, but again, it gives you an overall view of the tabernacle, okay? That's, again, you take it for what it's worth. You value every resource as you learn. You guide yourself, you keep growing, and then you move from one resource to the next one, okay? All right. Next. Okay, I got so many here, I don't know what to start. All right, if you're really interested in scholarly work and you want to really know about the book of Leviticus, I recommend the Anchor Bible commentary. The Anchor Bible commentary. This is by Jacob Milgram, okay? These 3 volumes are just for the book of Leviticus. These 3 volumes, just for the book of Leviticus, okay? This is what I had to read when I was doing my research on the ancient Near East and sacrifices and the temple in the book of Leviticus about 5 years ago. And the information is incredible. Over 30 years of resources. He quotes from many primary sources, and this is probably one of the best 30 years he spent on this commentary. Now, but there is hope. And there is hope. Give me 1 second. See if I find it now. because I can never find anything when I need it. And I just saw it earlier, and I didn't grab it. Oh, there it is, right here. If you don't want to read those 3 volumes, like I had to research them for a whole year, all right, then you can get his short version. This is his short version of those 3 volumes. It's a compendium of all the stuff. The most important thing, he put it here. And, you know, in the back, you see the bibliography. It's quite big. So, you know, you can get this one by Jacob Milgrom. Now, not everything he says I agree with, understand. He's just giving you the understanding of the book of Leviticus. But if you're going to really study sacrifices and ancient Near Eastern context of the temple service, I highly recommend this research because it really helps you put it into proper perspective. Many people, they want to buy books that align with their theology. When you read all this stuff, some of the stuff in its context from ancient Near Eastern perspective, it'll ruin your theology because it's not trying to accommodate your belief system in light of Scripture. In other words, you have to adapt to the context of Scripture. All right, this one, if you want to know about temple location, okay? This is by Benjamin Mazar, okay? If you don't know who Benjamin Mazar was, he was one of the primary researchers and archaeologists for the walls of Jerusalem, specifically the southern wall. This is one of the primary resources you must have in regards to the temple research. This is an older book, but it's called The Mountain of the Lord by Benjamin Mazar. And again, you know, this man research, he was digging there after 1967 in the southern steppes. If you want to know archaeology on temple location, please pay attention to people who actually do the research, not those people who really think on theory. This is one of them. Benjamin Mazar, what is called the Mountain of the Lord, okay? I'm going to read you something here real quick. Benjamin Mazar, his daughter was called Eilat Mazar, and his daughter is also very an important archaeologist for the city of David, also for the walls on the southern step. Now, if you want to know about real archaeology that is validated, or at least they do peer review, try the Biblical Archaeology Review. Okay, this is important because they examine every piece of information. So if it's here, they either validate it or discredit it because you see, it's done the proper way. All right, just like somebody trying to be an archaeologist and no one in Israel knows them as a valid archaeologist. Don't listen to those guys, okay? I mean, you're going to be wasting time. They're going to lead you the wrong way. Listen, when you deal with primary sources and archaeology, it's not for speculation. You have to be honest with your findings. You know, there are many people that are minimalists, and they use the archaeology to minimize God, but it's interesting that a lot of the archaeologists, the more they try to minimize the Lord, the more they find the Bible is true, because they're looking at the Bible and they find stuff based on what Scripture says. So at least as a historical book, no one can deny it. So no one can say there was not the existence of Israel, you know, but we know it's more than that. Now, this book is a little bit more about the Kohen's Handbook. If you're interested about how the priests, they do stuff, it tells you, it takes purity laws from the laws of the Kohanim, and they try to teach you in this handbook about how it works. You know, the laws of purity, Tumah, and all that stuff. You know, it's a good resource to have to understand the level of responsibility that the priest will have to go through in order to stay ritually pure, not necessarily in the temple, because it's talking about in the daily domain and, you know, outside of it. All right, this book was given to me a long time ago, 1997, by someone who came, a friend of mine who came to Israel. And you know what's amazing? It's like this was given to me that long ago about the temple, and at that time I was not. That was in 1990, the first part of 1998. I was not really studying, researching, and everything that is in this book is something that a full circle I'm studying all over again. And I had this book all along since 1998, and it wasn't until recently that I went back and looked it up again, and everything that I'm researching today is actually here. It's a really good book. It's called The Holy Temple Revisited by Rabbi Livo Resnick. And again, just you just compare the information and be aware of the resources when they get it from, okay? Then we have, they call the Temple Scroll by Yael Gadin, okay? The Temple Scroll by Yael Gadin. Very important resource to have, okay? I'm sorry, Yigael Yadin. I apologize for mispronouncing his name. All right, so this is important. This book is really, really good. But if you really want to do a lot of the research, then you can get his real research on the Temple Scroll, and he talks everything about the temple here, and it's amazing information. He even has, what is that noise? He even has the Yigael Yadin, the Temple Scroll, Volume 3 supplement. This is a supplemental thing that he has. It actually shows you all of the fragments from the, I think it's oh my God, I just went blank, from the Qumran scrolls that deals with the temple, okay? This is an important research to have. Yigael Yadin is one of the preeminent archaeologists and scholars in regards to this topic, and I highly recommend you get that. So if you don't want to do all the big volumes, then get the little book, okay? Get this one, all right? It says The Hidden Laws of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it deals with the temple. Something for you to compare with. All right, next. This one is by my teacher, Joseph Good. He has 2 books that I highly, highly recommend. And one of them is called Measure the Pattern, Volume 1. Joseph Good, he is probably the most neglected scholar within the Hebraic understanding. Unfortunately, people do not value the amount of understanding, wisdom, and humility that this man has in regards to his research. For 2 years in a row, I'm going to Israel to take private intensive courses with him, because I think it's that valuable. This is what he did in this book. This is only about the temple location. It took him, I think he told me it was like 15 years to do research on this. He took all of the books that I'm showing you, and the Mishnah behind me, and the Tosefta, and the biblical record of the temple, and he put it all together using geography, topography, archaeology, biblical history of Josephus. He took the Mishnah, he took the biblical evidence, everything, compile it to write this book so you would know what the temple location is. Okay? And then what he also did, him and his wife Debbie, they wrote a concise guide to the Mishnah and the Tosefta, in which he breaks down the content of each tractate of the Mishnah and what it contains, so it's easily to go and get it. I will get this as a resource. If you read the Mishnah to understand the temple, you can go right to it, to the content, and then you can find the context or the content of that tractate of the book of the Mishnah, and you can go directly to the books that you need. It will save you a lot of time, okay, a lot of time to do this. So I highly recommend these 2 books. Not only do I believe he's an amazing teacher and very knowledgeable, but also a very humble human being and a great teacher, okay? And he's also one of my best friends in the world. I love him very dearly, and I highly recommend his books. You have to have this. And he's a believer in Yeshua, and I think you should probably consider supporting his work. He also has a website on the temple that is amazing. He knows a lot more temple than I do, and I love learning from him. This book is also called The Ancient Jerusalem Revealed, okay? And look back here. This is really important. I want you to read back there. It says Israeli Exploration Society, Biblical Archaeology Society. That's when you know some of these books are legit, all right? Now, maybe some of their conclusions may not agree with every single one of them, but you need to understand who the sources are. When somebody tells you the city of David is that where the temple was, I'm sorry, that's the archaeology and the proof does not show that evidence. All right, that is assumptions. We have to stop thinking like that. We have to behave more responsibly with some of this information. So what this does, it points out to location, archaeology, topography. It cites a lot of primary sources, and it shows you all of the evidence. Well, the temple will be in the location. For example, the corner where the priest used to blow the shofar in order for him to separate the holy from the profane on the Shabbat. Okay, that's down in the south western corner of the temple, the temple area. All right, next. This one is probably my most precious possession. I don't know if it's in print right now. I'm trying, but I was able to manage to get the PDF, and and I'm still waiting for my copy to arrive. And this is called Below the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. All right. I think if you can search through the internet, you can probably find it, the PDF. It's by Shimon Gibson and David M. Jacobson. And, this is probably one of the most valuable pieces of research ever done. All right. It talks about the importance of all the cisterns. This research gives you every water resource in Jerusalem under the Temple Mount. It points out every single one of the cisterns on the Temple Mount. Okay. This is a topographical map. Now, this took in consideration the research of Condor, Warren, Wilson, Conrad Sheik. I'm missing some people. Whole bunch of other royal engineers of the Palestine Exploration Fund that they began to research, Jerusalem in the 1800s. They were there to try to help the Turks deal with the water problem in Jerusalem, and because there were Christians from England, and they will go there and they will measure out the cisterns, and Warren and Wilson, they start digging through. They found the Western Wall. I mean, they did more than what they were supposed to there to do. I highly recommend you get this one. By the way, for what I understand, a lot of the guides of Israel, they read this one. I'm still waiting for my copy. I was able to manage to get a PDF, from the internet, but get the hard copy, please. All right, now next, then we have Eilat Mazar. Remember the granddaughter of Benjamin Mazar? This is her. That's Eilat Mazar and Benjamin Mazar right there. Okay? So therefore, these people have been researching the Western Wall, the Southern Walls, the City of David for over 30, 40 years. All right? Now, this research is a must in your library. If you want to discuss and argue and debate about temple location, and you're not really quoting from the people who did the digging and know the resources and know the truth, then you're wasting time with your argument, because it will not stand when it comes to the evidence. Now, you can have an opinion, you can have an assumption, you can have a theory, but when you put all of the evidence together, it's not going to stand. We're going to look like fools if we continue to present information that cannot be backed up by primary sources. In this case, when we are dealing with the temple structure, okay, with the temple, this is paramount for us to understand, okay, because the temple is a tafnit. It is a blueprint. No one has the right to change it. The location and anything and the functions of it, because it's holy, it's kadosh. Okay, so I will recommend this book, The Complete Guide to the Temple Mount Excavations. This is all archaeological. You need this if you're going to say the City of David is now the location of the temple. It's interesting. She started the digging in the City of David. She never once says the temple was there. So something is amiss here, and I think we have to be more responsible with the research. And if you're not willing to do the research, then consider just studying it first before having an argument, because people are researching and they're looking and they're verifying information. And we want to continue to gain credibility. If you are starting your resources and your studies on the temple, and you want to just go on a more picture-based, short information on the temple, consider the Holy Temple of Jerusalem by the Temple Institute. Okay, this is what I started with back in 99, 2000. I began to read this, and they do a good job, promoting the temple and giving you information concerning the temple. And I think I'm grateful for the Temple Institute for them at least getting the ball moving again in regards to temple functions and the need to understand the temple. So I don't have to necessarily agree with everything they do, but I am grateful for what they've done to help us understand more, which has opened the doors for many of us to learn. So I'm grateful for that. Remember Eilat Mazar? This book right here that I told you was paramount to have. This is the short version of the excavations. This is the long archaeological writings that she did for the walls on the Temple Mount. Okay? Where they from, where they come from, what they look like, its measurements, everything. You know, the topography, it even comes with maps. All the kinds of maps that you can have. Okay? So this is a great resource to have to understand more. And this is validated, verified by primary sources. This is not made up, ladies and gentlemen. This is like years and years of research to put this stuff together. So this one right here is a must in your library if you can, if you can get it. All right? All right. So far, so good, right? Now, it doesn't mean that I'm an expert, that I'm smart, that I know more than anybody. No, that's why I have the book. So I want to study. I want to research. I want to learn. I want to know how to do things the right way. And I want to learn how to present the information in a credible way so that I don't spend my time defending my position. And I know, listen, I know this video is not really popular because I'm not talking about conjecture or, I'm not talking about, making up stuff and conspiracies and all the crazy things people talk about. I'm trying to actually share a video that would edify you and teach you how to study scripture. It's okay. It's not going to be popular. It's not for everybody. And I understand that, that's okay. But those who really want to study and learn about the temple, it's sad, but people don't care about the holy things of God. Believe it or not, they don't really care. If you did, you will study the temple. It is command. In Ezekiel 43, verse 10 to 12, we are commanded as the house of Israel to be ashamed of our iniquities and to learn about the temple. We are commanded to know about the doors and the entrance and the exits, the laws of the house, everything. We're there. I'm not showing you this because I want to pretend I'm smarter than you. I'm showing you this because to me, that command is a serious command and I want to research it. There's another one, Jerusalem's Temple Mount, From Solomon to the Golden Dome by Herschel Shanks. Okay, by the way, not every single researcher I agree with. Not all the researchers agree with each other, but you'd be surprised how many things you can gather from different people because they all focus on different areas. So you can gather information and you can learn. Now, this one I really like because I'm very much a picture type of guy. And this is Josephus' Jewish Wars from the Carta Jerusalem, okay, by Stephen Notley. And what he did, he put in Josephus in Jewish Wars, which talks a lot about the temple, and he made it into like with maps and pictures, and and I think it's really, really cool. I read this one, I went through it, and I learned a lot because now I was able to put a picture to the information. And that's something that happens with Josephus. It's like when you read it, you don't really make the connection because there's no pictures. You don't see the topography, the geography, and the history. By the way, with that being said, if you want to study Josephus, you have the Winston Josephus. But if you want to really learn the real Josephus and, that is credible resource, consider this one. This is the Lowe's Classical Library. It's called the Lowe's Classical Libraries on Jewish Antiquities. And he's got all of the books in here, War of the Jews and everything. This is from the Harvard edition, okay? And this one I will recommend. And it's easy to travel with. It has the Greek on the left, and it has the English on the right here, okay? So if you want to study the temple, this is a great resource. It's not difficult reading, and it does a good job telling you about everything that happened in the temple. So you have this option, or you have this option, and many people will take this one because it's easy reading and it has more pictures in it. Okay, we learn through pictures, so it's better that way. Again, returning back to the early 1900s, the early 2000s, when I got this one from the Temple Institute, and it helped me. Again, it's just a really good glimpse, gives you a lot of pictures, and it teaches you about every single aspect of the temple in a really short way. Sometimes the picture can really give you more information than just, the all the books, and you don't see a picture, you don't make the connection. So this is a good resource to have. All right, here we go. Next, we have this map that is about the third temple. Another map that is about the 10th temple. Then we have this book. It's called The Temple, a description of the second temple, according to the Rambam. I have the Mishneh Torah right over there, those brown books on top. Every single one of those books deals with temple. Those books are the Mishneh Torah and the Rambam in regards to the temple. If you want to talk to a Jewish person about the temple, start with the Rambam and the Kehati. The Kehati is the Mishnah down here. Okay, those are the credible resources with Judaism. If you are going to talk to a Jewish person about the temple and you are bashing the Rambam, he's not going to listen to you. Okay, something that I learned from Joe. I have to learn how to have a dialogue with the Jewish people who talk about the temple, respecting the resource and then showing them all the perspectives from credible sources, because they're not going to believe in what we say about Yeshua, but the whole idea is the temple. And sometimes if you learn how to present the information, they'll consider more. So this one right here is a really good resource to have. Okay, again, what it does, it shows you pictures. Okay, it shows you pictures on everything. Okay, so it's called The Temple, a description of the second temple according to the Rambam. I read this book and I learned a lot. Okay, it really helped me understand a lot more. Some things, clearly are not necessarily right on, but you just learn to chew the bone. Chew on the meat and throw away the bone. All right, now this resource for me is one of my most valuable ones. It's called the Avodah HaKorbanot. Okay, the service of the sacrifices. What's really cool about this is that you learn every single sacrifices done in the temple. All right, this is a hard to get book. Let me give you an example. You have the type of sacrifices. Okay, it even makes a picture of the animal. All right, now watch this. It tells you external, communal. It tells you the type of sacrifice. External, communal. External, individual offerings. Internal, communal sin offering. Internal, individual sin offering. Communal elevation offering. In other words, every single offering done in the temple, they describe it. They tell you which animal, how it was done, everything. Also the feast days. So let's say I want to go to the day of the daily service, the Tamid. Okay, they do the morning service. It gives you every step of everything that was done in the morning and the afternoon service. Every single step. The prayers that were done. Let me read you an example of this. The sequence of the daily service in the Beit HaMikdash. Taking of the ashes. It tells you exactly the order. Taking of the ashes. Arrangements of the Maim Pyre, which is the fire, the wood. Arrangements of the second, because there were two fires there. Bringing of two logs, a slaughtering of the daily offering. And it tells you the time, who performed it, accessories accompanying with the service, joined with, on the Yom Kippur, if they did that or not, completion of the service, and it gives you a comment at the end. Cleansing of the internal altar, receiving on throwing and pouring of the blood of the daily offering, cleaning of menorah and the preparation of the five of the lambs, conveying the daily offerings. Why is this important? Because if you study Luke chapters 1 in regards to the temple service and the incense offering, you would know exactly which step, around what time Zechariah was somewhere in the temple, in the holy place, offering the incense when the angel appeared to him. So now you're not speculating about which time. You have now a concise idea of more or less what time frame he was there and what he was doing. Now this book is all in Hebrew. It's the same one as this one. I love this book so much. I bought two because I go through them so fast that one over there is already ripped, because I study a lot on the sacrifices. So I was able to manage to get an extra one, and I got it because I don't want to lose this resource. And they don't have this one on the PDF or any logos resource. It's like you can't really find them anymore. At least I haven't been able to. But I went to Israel, and in the Temple Institute store, I found another one. I got really excited because it's thicker, right? Well, when I opened it up, it's all in Hebrew. Okay, I read a little Hebrew, but I'm not going to understand it as well as I do the other one clearly because I'm learning Hebrew, okay? So it tells you the same thing, but what's really cool, what I saw, and the reason why I bought it is because at the end of the book, it shows you pictures of exactly the way they will kill the animal, the procedure of koshering the animal. Because we know they used to take the entrails and take all the stuff. And look, you see, it shows you everything. So I bought the book and I got to learn the Hebrew, and that it says right there so I can study it. It has pictures and pictures and pictures and instruction about how the altar worked, all that stuff. It's okay, it's in Hebrew. I could always learn the Hebrew, you know, but I'd rather have the resource. So I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to understand this. Are you with me so far? Are you bored? I know it seems like too much. I understand that. But somebody asked me, what resources do you study? Well, I'm showing you. Because when I study the temple, I do my best to validate every single piece of information. And if I have an opinion, I tell you this is based on my opinion, now not assumption. All right, now the next one, which I kind of like, it's really cool. It was a gift to me. And again, if you want to get a lot of pictures and, you know, this is called the Beit HaMikdash, the Temple on the Holy Mount. Okay, it's a really cool book. It's like a table book. You know, you put it in there on your table and you start getting a lot of cool information, nothing too in-depth, but what it does, it gives you a lot of cool pictures with information. Not everybody's interested to do deep research like I may be interested. So this still gives you, for example, look at this. It says, it's talking about the Azara, okay? The section of the Azara, which is the section of the priest right in here. This area right here is the section of the Azara. It's most holy for the priest. No Levite can be walking around this area right here. As a matter of fact, no priest can walk between the porch and the altar without unwashed hands and unwashed feet. Okay? So now, it gives you an idea. Let me give you the type of information that at a glimpse it tells you. It says, the Azara, which is the courtyard of the priest, embracing the temple, and in itself is considered an integral part of the temple complex in the eastern portion of the hallowed courtyard between the eastern wall of the Azara and the eastern wall of the temple building itself stood the great altar. It is known as the altar of burnt offering. The area of the altar was 32 by 32 cubits. That's 3.7 times 3.7 meters. That is 60 feet by 60 feet. All right. And its height measured 10 cubits, 5.7 meters or 18 feet. And by the way, I got to make a correction. I was teaching that the altar was 15 feet high. It's actually 18 feet high. You see, I'm learning something new all the time. So going over this information, and I have it marked too. I don't know why I missed that. So I'm learning constantly, and when you're wrong, you're wrong. And it does really cool. Now this right here, oh wow, this is really cool. This is a great map right here of the Temple Mount, showing the Stoa, the Royal Stoa, the southern steps, and also the whole mount. Really cool stuff. It's called the Beit HaMikdash, the temple on its holy mount, on the Holy Mount. Highly recommend that one. All right. Then we don't need this one. If you want to know about the tabernacle, the same thing. Mishkan is done the same way. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, is structures and its vessels. Okay. It shows you a beautiful pictures of what the tabernacle looked like and how it worked. Highly recommend it. Highly, highly recommend it. It gives you different things so you can get an idea what they look like. Okay. Really good resource, you know, like for example, the techelet, the covering of the Mishkan, how they used to weave it together. You see that? That's really cool. And it gives you an explanation on it, and it's a really good resource to have. So if you want to know about the tabernacle and you don't want to really study too much deep into it, but you want to know what it looked like, this is a great resource. All right. Next. Okay, now we have this. It's more using ancient Near Eastern stuff. I'm not too crazy about the book, but when you read it, it gives you kind of good insights about, holiness and things like that in the temple and the garments. It's called The Temples and the Temple Service in Ancient Israel by Menachem Haran. Okay? Sometimes I read books that I don't agree with just to get to an idea of what they're talking about. Okay, now, this is a must. If you want to know about the architecture of Herod, and why is this important? Because the architecture of Herod is paramount to understand the first century platform that Herod constructed around the Temple Mount. Okay, many people say, well, that was a Roman fort. Well, the reason why Herod built the Temple Mount the way he did, he added, by the way, to the Temple Mount. He added to the west a retaining wall, a northern extension of the northern walls of the temple, and a southern one, adding to the Hasmonean period. And it looks like Roman architecture, or the platform, yes, because he was highly influenced in the Roman period. And now Ehud Nexer, this man right here, also again a scholar and archaeologist, he has probably the best information about everything dealing with every construction that Herod built. Okay, and he's the most expert on this. If somebody tells you anything about the Roman building and they don't go and look into Ehud Nexer, they're not doing the research. He's the one I read in regards to all the stuff that is going on right now with the temple location. He's one of them. Amazing stuff he reads. He tells you, let me give you some of the things he talks about here. He covers every single one of the buildings that Herod built, okay? Okay, he talks about Herod, the man and the king, Masada, 3 phases of construction, building projects at Jericho, 3 palaces and a hippodrome, the building projects of Samaria, Savasta. These are the things that Herod built that were in the Roman architecture. The port city of Caesarea Maritima, it took Herod 12 years to build. The building projects in Jerusalem, the rebuilding of the second temple and its precinct, Herodian, the palace, burial site, and memorial of the king's name. That's in Judea, in the desert Judea. Near south of Bethlehem. And then you have the desert fortress. Everything from planning, it talk about planning of palaces, planning of temples, everything. He has everything he did. And if you want to know about, a lot of good research, you got to study him. Okay? So you see, I read him all the time because a foremost resource. He was a PhD Hebrew University, professors of emeritus at the Institute of Archaeology of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And he's also an archaeologist. He has initiated and directed excavations of several building projects of Herod the Great, and is author of the award-winning Masada Volume 3. So I would recommend him. So when you talk about, the temple was in the city of David, and, the whole Temple Mount was a fort for the legion, read Ehud Nexer, please. And then you will be better educated. And a lot of these arguments will be lost. Okay? Next. This one is really good. I went to the model of Jerusalem, the second temple, and it just pictures about the second model that you see there that I teach from when I go to my Israel tour. Okay? So I really like this book. So when I take my tour, but for example, I'm going back to Jerusalem here pretty soon. So what I'm doing, I'm taking this one with me and I read it on the plane. So I can at least familiarize myself again with the geography, read information that I miss. So when I'm around the model, I know where I'm at. Okay. And then when I'm in Jerusalem, when I go to the old city and I'm walking around the walls, I'm already walked around the model in the Jerusalem museum, and I'm already now can see first century archaeology, even though I'm walking around the city. I know where I'm at. The geography. Now, this one is a really cool book that I just purchased. I only read half of it already because it's not very difficult to read. What I like is Arise and Descent. a guide to the Temple Mount. Okay, so I go on the Temple Mount a lot, and it gives you a lot of research. A lot of research of, you know, the cisterns. What you see here, those little dots right there, are each cistern that I told you about in the book Underground, the Temple Mount. Okay, so it gives you a lot of good information about everything. It connects the archaeology. See, that's the royal stoa. And it gives you the evidence right here that is still there, that I saw this in November. I saw this, and this is from Second Temple period. Now you see this picture here. Where is it? Where am I? That picture right here, that is the remnant of the Soreg, the dividing wall that no stranger, no foreigner can come through. That is the remainder of it. And I saw it again too in November when I went to the Temple Mount. So this little book that you can get in Jerusalem, if you're going to go up to the Temple Mount, you don't need to depend on a guide. It can really help you know where you're at, where it comes from, and the Muslim influence to it in connection with the temple and the archaeology. Then we have this book that is important. It's called the Herodian Quarters in Jerusalem. And why is this book important? I'm almost done. I got maybe about 10 more books. This book is important because the research, they found the house of Katros, which is the house of Caiaphas. On the west side in the old city, the Jewish quarters, there's what is called the Herodian mansions. And in 1967, after they recaptured the city, Jerusalem, the archaeologists began to dig in underneath in that area, and they found a huge mansion that belonged to the high priest on the 1st century. Now, what they've done now, when you go to the square in the old city, you will never know that this information is still under the ground. It's like 30, 40 feet underneath a building right there by the square. Okay, so what you see is this. And based on, you can tell this was a rich house because of the mosaic, but I'm going to show you a piece of information. You see what you see here in front of the cover? A great amount of information on that. You know why we know this belonged to a Kohen, a priest? Not only because it had mosaic floors, not only because it has the wall there that was, you know, that was very highly finished, but the furniture that you see there was all stone. If you study temple protocol and temple research, the priests needed to keep themselves cleansed at all time. So their furniture was stone because it would not contain impurities. Okay, and also they found what is called the peristyle, which is a big hall that the high priest, in this case, would welcome the dignitaries. Lee Riedmeyer, by the way, he made this picture that you see there. And we know where they took Yeshua. This is the place where they took Yeshua out of the house of the high priest. And it's right there by the old city, near there where the temple once stood. Then we have Dan Bahad. Oh my gosh, this guy is amazing researcher. I have his older book. I can't find his older book. Was here. Dan Bahad is very important research. He's an expert also on the Western Wall. And this is also archaeological. You can find it in www.cartajerusalem.com. This is a really good book. In Israel, 69 shekels. And it's there you go. You see that? It shows you the archaeology. The cisterns is all based on research. See the geography of Jerusalem, where everything was located. Dan Bahat is a great resource. Dan Bahat, Eila Mazar, Lee Riedmeyer, Joseph Good, Warren Wilson, Conrad Sheik, all these people. In the Shadow of the Temple by Meir Ben Dov, this man was one of the guys who dug in Jerusalem also with Benjamin Mazar. Okay, so they were doing stuff together. And again, it's all archaeology about temple location. Okay, when I talk to people who talk about the temple location and they argue about whether the temple is in the city of David or the Temple Mount, I start quoting a lot of this research that I studied, and it's amazing to me that 90% of these guys, they never look or know of any of these guys. And if they do, they take their work completely off context. It's really shameful. And I'm trying to avoid that. I want to stay away from any of that stuff. I want to be, when it comes to the temple, I need to be straight on point and do my best. And if I don't know something, I tell you. And if I'm not sure, I'll let you know. And if I'm wrong, I will change it, because I want to do what is right. I want to do what is right to honor the Creator. This book right here is a great resource to have. I read it here and there, chapter here, chapter there. I haven't finished the whole book. Pretty good information. Is In the Shadow of the Temple, The Discoveries of Ancient Jerusalem. And I think you can find this one on Logos, okay, by Meir Ben Dov. Okay? All right. I'm almost done. Then you have The Quest by Lee Rickmeyer. He spent 10 years as a chief architect of Benjamin Mazar. And by the way, he never met, he said it in an archaeology review, he said in the 10 years he was the chief architect for Benjamin Mazar, he never met or talked to Ernest Martin. This book. I have it, yes. I've read it, yes. Just throw it out. Okay? Okay, so this guy was there. He was digging. He's a known researcher and archaeologist. This guy was there digging through all the stuff. He wrote a book on assumptions. And this guy who was there 10 years never met this guy who was there and said the temple was in the city of David. What's wrong with that picture? All right? So something to think about. But don't believe me. Verify yourself. Then we also have Eilat Mazar, who is the granddaughter, the daughter of Benjamin Mazar. I think. I hope I have it right. She did the discoveries of the Solomonic walls in Jerusalem right here. By the way, you know the time period by the finish of the stones. You know the Hasmonean period, the Solomonic period, the time of Ezra, and the time of Herod, just by the finish of the stones in Jerusalem. And you talk about this stuff. So when you go walking in the eastern wall from the south or the southeast to the northeast, you are able to really know which time period. You can see the joint, the bend. You can see the Hasmonean period and extension. You can see the Herodian extension on the southeast. And you can see the Persian stone, which is called the offset stone, in the north part, 38 feet north of the modern day Eastern Gate. Okay, you can see all this information. And here she speaks about all the discoveries, all the research, the construction, the topography of the land. That's the topography of the land and what it looked like in the time. If you do not take in consideration the topography of the land, you're going to really be hard pressed to prove to me that the temple was in the city of David. Okay. All right. So it's called The Discovering the Solomonic Walls in Jerusalem. Okay. By Eilat Mazar. So they've done a lot of research on this stuff. Then if you want to get into more reading temple functions and things like that, you can go to the Laws of Tahara, which is a pictorial of the temple service, and it teaches you all the rules and regulations about temple cleansing. You know, what to do with the leper, Metzora, and how to identify. So when you read the book of Leviticus and you start understanding about that, it tells you what to do, how they managed to do the purity laws, you know, what is a kosher oven, and all these things. It's a really great resource to have. And this is called the Pictorial Avodah Service. By the way, you can find this for free on the internet on PDF. I have them on PDF. And it's a great resource to have an idea of how they used to do the ritual requirements for the temple and everyday life. All right, so let's continue. It's a good book. It's by the Art Scroll History series, the history of the Jewish people, the temple, the Second Temple era. Okay, and it's put out by the Mizora Publications. Okay. And it's a good resource to have. It gives you some pictures and history and about what's going on and the temple period and everything in the first century. And it does a good job. I like it because it just, if I want to get an idea of what's going on in time period, I don't have time to read 3 or 4 chapters. I'll come to this one and it gives me at a glimpse, you know, some details that I need to know before I teach it. Next, I have the third Beit HaMikdash, the third temple. Okay, this book is really good about the third temple. Okay, is based on the book of Ezekiel clearly, and it describes every detail of the Third Temple period. And I also have a model of the Third Temple right over there that I look into to verify information. All right. Then we have the Mishkan and the Holy Garments. Again, something about the tabernacle. And these are Jewish sources, by the way. It talks about the altar and everything that goes along with it. Okay, it gives you a lot of resources, a lot of information, and I highly recommend a lot of. You can buy this in Judaica Center. I got it in Jerusalem. So this one comes from Jerusalem, and you can get a lot of the information. When it comes to the temple stuff, I'm very careful where I gather my resources from. All right. The colorful ceremonies of the Beit HaMikdash, very good book. Hard to find. This book is hard to find. It's broken already. I read it so much. And what it does, to give you an idea, and I'll be done here soon, guys. I'm taking a lot longer than I wanted to. But it only goes to show you that what I've compiled in 20 years, and these is good to have, the resources, so you can go right to them. And to be credible, to make sure that that I'm doing my best to put out the best information that I can. And, when I put out an argument for the temple, it's because I'm trying to find out as much as I can to validate the information. This book right here, it talks about the temple watch, the Auto Mitzbeach, the altar, the daily avodah, the daily service, the golden menorah, the sacrifice, the incense offering, the 12 showbreads, they have shekel, the festival. It tells you about the festival. It tells you about first fruits. It tells you about the service of Yom Kippur. It goes through every step of the service of Yom Kippur. All right. It tells you about the red heifer, how they did it, everything. It shows you step by step. It even shows you where they killed the animal, how they did it on the altar. It's really resource, hard to find, and it's by the Torah Umezoa Publications, and it's based on the Rambam. Again, based on the Rambam, the one I have right over there on top. Okay, I didn't bring those down because it's just too much. So I recommend the Mishnah Kehati or the ArtScroll Kehati, also the Mishnah Torah by the Rambam, and all of these resources. Now this one, if you want to know about the Psalms, this is the authority, Mo Winkle. Mo Winkle did the best research I found so far on the Psalms. The Psalms in Israel's worship. And he did an amazing job comparing ancient Near Eastern customs to the contrast between the Levites and the message they're trying to convey to Israel in the Psalms and what they mean. Highly, highly important, okay? So it's a great book. It's a little hard reading at times, but like, for example, it tells you about all the Psalms, the enthronement ceremonies, the Psalms that were sung in certain times of the year and the feasts, what they mean. And it's a really good book. I really like it. It's called Sigmund Mowinckel, the Psalms in Israel's Worship. And this book was recommended to me by Joseph Good, and I'm glad I spent the money on this one. Now, this one I got in Israel a few years back is by Menorah Books. It's called The Messianic Temple. This is not a Messianic as we know here in the West. It's called Messianic Temples on the Third Temple. I got in Israel. They used to have a Third Temple model. That's why I met my good friend Joe Halevi. And this book is based on the book of Ezekiel. And it really gives you pictures of how they did everything. And it breaks it down. Who the sons of Zadok were. Says the sons of Zadok. Zadok was the first high priest in the temple in the temple of Solomon. The Radak, which is a commentary, says that he was a descendant of Pinchas, Phineas, the son of Eleazar, the high priest, and grandson of Aaron, the high priest. Very important information. Many people don't even know the difference between Abiathar and Zadok, or Eleazar and Ithamar. Okay, that's very important. It says the covenant of the priesthood was given to the descendants of this line exclusively. For the descendants of Ithamar, the other remaining sons of Aaron were demoted from the service of the priesthood through the punishment of Eli, the high priest, in the times of Samuel, the prophet. So there was a change in the priesthood, not in from a different line to a different line, from brother to brother. So you have Levi, then he has Merari, Gershon, and Kohath. Out of Kohath comes Amram. Out of Amram comes Moses and Aaron and Miriam. Out of Aaron comes the 4 sons. 2 of them died. Then you have Eleazar and Ithamar. Out of those 2, Ithamar for a while was the line of the high priest until the time of David and Solomon. In the time of David and Solomon, and also what Eli did, Eli was a descendant of Ithamar. Now, Eli, he allowed his sons to profane the tabernacle. The tabernacle was destroyed during the time of the Philistines. And then later on, in the time of David, when Adoniah wanted to usurp the authority of the kingship and the kingdom, Adoniah, he received loyalty from Abiathar, the high priest, right? But because Zadok, who was also a priest, he was loyal to David because David was put in authority by the Creator himself as the king. Thus, the disobedience of Abiathar by supporting Adoniah, whom God did not call to be king, but Solomon was to be king, thus now make his transition on the priesthood. Okay, it goes from Abiathar to Zadok. And because of the loyalty of Zadok to David, and because David was placed in that position by God himself, thus in the book of Ezekiel chapters 43 and 44, the prophet tells us that the Lord is rewarding the sons of Zadok for their loyalty when they committed treason against the Lord. Okay? By knowing the lines of the priest, then you understand who the sons of Zadok, and now you're not going to reinvent the wheel. So this book gives you a lot of insight on the book of Ezekiel. I really like this book. I've been through it already twice, and every time I read it, I learn something new, a little bit of the of information that I miss. I always get it, and I'm grateful to be able to have this resource. Takes 20 years, doesn't happen overnight, Another one on the tabernacle. It's called the Mishkan Illustrated. Just another tabernacle book illustrating all the measurements and everything. It's put out by, give me a second. I got this one in Israel. It's by Rabbi David Meir. So it's by Judaica Press. Judaica Press, okay? Like that. You can find it at the Judaica Press. You can there's the ISBN, and you can get that information, a quick picture there on your screen. You can have it. It's called the Mishnah Illuminated. All right, right here. We have touching of stones, the touching of our stones of our heritage. And this is, again, research on the Western Wall alone. This is all the discoveries they are doing on the Western Wall of Jerusalem, okay, which is the retaining wall that Herod built, okay. So it tells you everything on that. Very good piece of information. Again, it's not in-depth information like chapters of reading, but what it does, let me give you an example. Watch this. Okay, this is a great illustration. Now, today, you have people pray right here. This is what people pray. This is the Western Wall today. But during the time of the temple period and time of Yeshua, this was the street level right here, like 60 feet below ground. So people are praying 60 feet above ground level today. Okay? So imagine how big that arch was. Now, you see this down here? I've been down here to the bedrock as far as last November. This is the bedrock. Josephus talks about the trenches. I saw them. They're there. So even from here, there's another 30 feet down here. And I've been down there. Okay? So again, how much do we have to learn? Okay, we have a lot to learn. Touching the stones of our heritage. Now, I recommend these resources. I can't open them all because there's too many maps. But this is the illustrated wall maps of the Bible. Okay? You got all kinds of maps in here. It has ancient Near East, Hellenistic world, the New Testament period, key maps, Old Testament maps, everything in here is just maps. I highly recommend, because to be visual, you need to have all those maps. That's just of the Bible. But this one is more for the temple. It's the Cartas, wall maps, biblical Jerusalem. What I really like about this one, and how you know it's legit, is because when you go inside, it has Dan Bahat's research on the walls. And it's got everything. You see? By the way, you see the stones right here? I was telling you earlier, based on the type of stone, you know which time period? Whoops, right there. Now, you see right here, this is the Hasmonean period, and this is a Herodian period. And that middle line in the middle, right, where is it? I'm sorry, there, right in the middle, right, whoops, right here. That is called the joint. Okay, that's when you know the expansion from the Herodian period. Okay, so again, this particular resource is amazing. Look at this. How in the world are you going to place this 500 by 500 over here? It just doesn't make any sense. Topography itself, it shows you. Common sense shows you. So anyway, Dan Bahat, and in it you're going to have all the walls of Jerusalem and all the maps that come with it. It comes with all these maps. All these maps that you can have a better idea about the topography, the geography of the temple research. And with that, with all of that, I got to tell you that I still don't know. Okay? Now, I want to make a comment about the temples that Jerusalem forgot. None of those resources of people who've been doing this a lot longer ever come to the conclusion that the temple was in the city of David. Now, they may have differences of opinion about the location of the temple building on the Temple Mount. For example, Conrad Sheik believes that the temple building was here. Kaufman believed was here. Riedmeier believes it was a little bit more. So in other words, the argument is that the temple was not over here. The argument is that the building of the temple where the Holy Holies was either here or here or here, within about maybe 10 or 15 yards of each other. But the argument that the temple was in a different location, not even a thought from all these archaeologists, all these researchers who've been doing it for 30 years. I mean, why is it that all of a sudden one person, and I'm going to read from the acknowledgement, and by the way, I want to make something known. I am not attacking the character or the person of Ernest Martin. I've never met the man. I'm sure he probably was a great person, okay? But I'm only talking about his research. In this case, is creating a cancer by people taking the anti-temple position on the Temple Mount and now moving the temple. Now, but I want to read you from his acknowledgement. This is his acknowledgement of his book. I want to tell you how he gets his research, how he came to his theory, and then you're going to decide which resources you're going to listen to. By the way, I'm not putting myself at the height or the weight or the equivalent of any of these people. I'm only a student of the temple researching. Do I have an idea on the temple? Can I handle myself around temple location, archaeology, and geography? Yes. But am I any authority? No, I still have a lot to learn. I'm still researching, learning, studying. Would I someday would like to be considered as one of those primary sources or a resource that is credible? Absolutely. But as of today, I'm just a student learning like you. I just enjoy the topic. I'm passionate about it, and I want to continue to research it. But I'm going to read you the acknowledgement of this book. One book based on an assumption versus years of research, okay? And now the people in the Hebrew Roots movement, they are running wild with the assumption, and they're not willing to read all that stuff. What's wrong with this picture? Yes, I'm bringing a correction here. I think I've earned the right to bring this correction here. Because if you're not willing to put in the time to research and verify information, stop running wild with things that cannot be proven and giving credibility to people who have not earned it. Now, was he in Jerusalem doing digs and as a helping the archaeologists? Yes, no one doubts that. But I want to read you from the acknowledgement, okay? I'm reading from the middle of the page to give you context. Let me see right here to make sure you know where I'm at. I'm going to start reading from here. All right. This is the acknowledgement of the book. It says, I watch closely how Professor. Okay, let me just read this. Let me go from the top because I don't want to keep out of context. It says, in this large world in which we live, no man is ever an island. Each of us is constantly coming in contact with others from whom we learn many valuable teachings that cause us to change our minds in some important occasions. I would agree with that. In regard to the discovery of the site of the temples in Jerusalem, I had the pleasure and the good fortune of being brought into the company of many of the top historians and archaeologists of Jerusalem over the period of my professional career as a historian and theologian. So he was a historian, theologian, and an archaeologist. My first visit to Jerusalem in 1961 set my mind on solving the problems that affected the true geographical comprehension of early Jerusalem through its period of history. I watched closely, I want you to pay attention here. I watched closely how Professor Benjamin Mazar and Meir Ben Dov, which I showed you all the research, his assistant at the time, went about their professional duties. And I want you to pay attention to what's coming up here. And this was a great learning experience. Both of them were more than willing to answer questions for me in many private times that I could learn from them. Now, I want you to meditate on what he just said there because I'm going to make a contrast in his next paragraph. He says, both of them, that means Benjamin Mazar and Meir Ben Dov, okay, it says both of them were more than willing to answer questions for me in many private times that I could learn from them. Now, watch this. I, Ernest Martin, later met Professor Mazar's son, Owie, who was the first to recommend to me that the temples of Solomon and Zerubbabel were located on the Ophel Mount, that's just north of the original Mount Zion, on the southeast ridge. That is actually the location of the Akra that has just been discovered since 2004, which was a Greek building. So he is saying the temple was actually an ancient Greek building. He said, listen to this. He said, so Ernest is saying here, Mr. Ernest Martin is saying that when Owie, who is the son of Benjamin Mazar, told him in private, he said his father was leaning in that direction at the time of his death. That means that Ori, the son of Benjamin Mazar, told Ernest Martin, whom had many meetings with the chief archaeologist of the Western Wall, Southern Walls, and the Temple Mount, and never asked them, and they never told him directly, but he is saying that the son of the leading authority told him that his father was leaning towards that position, towards his death. So it's assumption. It's not based on research. It's not based on primary sources. It's not based on evidence. And then it says, watch this. After a study of 6 months, in 1995, I wrote a preliminary report that suggests strongly that this theory was indeed correct for the two earlier temples. Okay, let me get this straight. 6 months study on the topic. I don't have the book here, but it's here. But Benjamin Mazar studied the topic 30 years or more. Elat Mazar or more. All these people, and now you mean to tell me that based on an assumption on hearsay by the son of someone that, and the father died, so guess what? You're never going to hear from him. And he never mentioned it in any of his research. Imagine an archaeologist like Benjamin Mazar coming back with the credibility he had and say, guys, the temple was not here. It was actually in the seat of David. that would have carried a lot of weight. He never said it. So this book is written on assumption, based on the opinion of the son, and I never talked to the son, so I don't know even if that piece of information is true. What we need to do is go find the son of Benjamin Mazar that I pray and assume he's still alive, and ask him if indeed he said that, and what is the evidence his father found in that regard. So, ladies and gentlemen, assumption, concrete evidence, you decide, verify everything I say, don't believe anything I say, so that the temple of my king will forever be honored where it's supposed to be. May the Lord bless you and keep you guys. Thank you for your time. I took a long time, I know, but people have asked me where I get my resources, and instead of me sending a picture or you or me pretending that you have to believe me because I said it, no, I want to show you where I get my resources from so that we can be in the open up. And by the way, I tell you this, I'm searching, I'm looking, I'm learning, and if I'm wrong, I will change it. If I'm wrong, I'll fix it. I keep going back to Jerusalem to verify his information. I went back last year for 13 days, and I'm leaving in 2 weeks, another 13 days, to verify his information. If I go back 2 years and I find that his information is correct, I will come back and tell you I was wrong. This man is credible. But I went back last year, and the first day of my research, his argument was thrown out the window. And, we need to be balanced, weigh it out. I'm not in any way, shape, or form attacking his character. I'm only make sure that his information, that people who do not study the temple or care to research on the temple rather follow an assumption and somebody's opinion than the research that you have to do and study behind. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. And if you are willing and able, or you desire to study more in the temple, consider wisdomandtorah.com, my page, my website for all the research on the temple, or my teacher, Joseph Good, hatikva.org. You can go to his website and look into his incredible research that he has on the temple. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Shalom, guys. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to share this. Bye-bye.